Hey guys, it's BlockchainBrad and it's awesome as always to be with you in this crypto space. Guys, today I have a video that's slightly different to my normal videos, and that's because we're going to be talking about a concept called the innovation gap. And basically guys, the idea of this talk is to broach some key projects that are all currently out in the market in the cryptocurrency space right now, and they are going to be Bancor, Streamr, Golem, Augur, Gnosis and Particl. I'm going to be talking about those in relation specifically with this idea of the innovation gap. So guys, if this is not sort of something that's relevant to you or you feel like it's not really going to be that beneficial, no worries, we'll see you next video. But for those who think that innovation gap might be valuable in terms of their current portfolio, this may be of interest. I've outsourced some key information from different YouTubers and I'll broach them as we go. So guys, this is not financial advice and also it's not a statement on any of the quality of the projects that I'll be discussing today. The idea is just simply to relate them to the current time scaling of developments within the crypto and blockchain space that exists as of today. So guys, you can see here that I've done a little slideshow for you. So what I'll do is I'll just quickly go through a few key points in this slideshow, and then we'll go from there and talk about them in relation to some key YouTubers and provide you with some links. So guys, Bancor, if you're not familiar with it, it is essentially a protocol that's designed to enable the creation of networks of smart contracts, and they use this idea of smart tokens. And it's a trademarked idea, and the idea of them is to hold balances of one or more other tokens and use them as connectors and have a built-in autonomous conversion mechanism. So I won't continue reading on, but essentially what I've noticed in my readings is that there are several different major companies that you would know about, and I'll explain some of them, that are currently planning on using Bancor quite substantially as they put forth their plans, as their roadmaps unravel, and as they start to put their plans into the real world, into the real markets. Which is quite exciting because some of these players that are related to Bancor are quite significant and are actually fundamental ecosystems for different regions in the world. So that, if you'd like to know more about that, guys, you can see here that's some information about Bancor. Just to go on to the next bit of information as well, if you want to know a bit more about it, it explains how the smart token system works and how it's a solution for community currency liquidity. So that's the big thing, is that it's trying to solve the market of liquidity within the whole scope of crypto space, and it's quite a broad and ambitious plan. And if you want to know more, certainly you can check it out, but it is important to know that it is an ERC20 token designed to be formalized on the Ethereum blockchain. But as I understand it, that's the beginning framework, and then it's designed to work in several different other ecosystems and blockchains as well. So guys, if you want to know more about Bancor, I'll be discussing that in the context of innovation gaps today. But it's important that we understand a little bit about each of the blockchains or smart contracts slash projects that are related to the question of innovation gap. So what is an innovation gap? To understand that better, I found an excellent YouTuber named Cedric Dahl, and he manages his own fund. He's quite an intelligent person who knows a great deal about cryptocurrencies, and I found his concept, whether he coined it or not, I'm not sure, but just the way in which he explained it was really valuable. So I posted here a link to his YouTube down the bottom. So cheers to you, Cedric. Really appreciate that, mate. So what is an innovation gap? Well, basically, it's referring to any project or dApp that has done an ICO that doesn't work yet because it requires some sort of innovation. So essentially, the word gap is pretty indicative because it's not functional right now. It's not operational right now within the market. So you can't get marketplace network effects to the degree for it to be operational and financial. The other points that he raised in his talk was that any prediction market like Augur or Gnosis relies on a distributed oracle, and his argument was that whilst that's great, there's not that current technology within the blockchains that exist to facilitate that for immediate uptake. His argument was that both Augur and Gnosis both have innovation gaps because the technology or the Oh, okay, I see what I'm saying. So they both have innovation gaps because the distributed oracle technology is not such that it can have immediate utility. So he's really focused on the utility of a token or the utility of a project, and if it hasn't got certain factors that make it immediately or very soon to be useful or to have some sort of utilitarian and pragmatic relevance, then he discards for the immediate investment, because his argument is it has an innovation gap of some kind. So he explains that it hasn't got satisfactory market network effects, which is important. The next thing I want to talk about was speculators tend to buy because of the market expectations and the promise of future value. And they use things like the white paper. They talk about things like financial, they study things like the degree of financial backing of a particular project, the platform that it's going to be pitched on, and all those factors are formalized or used to formalize a decision for an investor. What Cedric's saying is that there is a key point, and that has to be, how useful is it right now? How is it a utility for the marketplace, or does it have utility? The other thing he mentions is it doesn't necessarily need to scale, which is an interesting thought coming from a hedge fund manager. But he argued that the protocol itself needs to have some degree of short-term or immediate utility. What he also said is he looks for tokens with immediate to short-term utility, for example, and he broached some key ones. He said Civic, Ethereum, Bitcoin. The reason being, his argument was that whilst there's this consistent update in the protocols themselves of these projects, right from the outset they were valuable and they were applicable and they were usable and you could transact with them. And his argument is, well, because of that, it has a degree of utility in the immediate term, and for that reason it ticks the box of no innovation gap. So for him, projects with innovation gaps don't work out of the gate. They're not initially viable, but he certainly doesn't mean that he discards them in terms of something that he wouldn't take seriously in later. But it just needs, I think we need to explore the impact that innovation gaps have on overall price as investors as we develop our portfolio. So the next thing, guys, that Cedric raised was there needs to be 3 ingredients for a successful uptake of a particular project or a protocol. So for that to happen, there needs to be developer network effects, there needs to be capital network effects, and there needs to be marketplace network effects. What we often find is that projects that, like Ethereum, for example, or Bitcoin, they have all 3. They have substantial capital, they do that via their ICOs, they have developer network effects because they've gathered enough developer support, and then obviously their marketplace, it's substantial because they've managed to garner enough support via usership to make it viable. Neo is another fantastic example of successfully integrating the 3 in order to establish and assert itself as a very viable and competitive ecosystem. So I thought that was really interesting. The other thing that Cedric raised that I wanted to expand on is he mentioned the idea of, well, he didn't coin this, but I sort of coined it to suit, the idea of the sentiment continuum for dApps with innovation gaps. So what Cedric did do is he talked about the continuum between optimistic and pessimistic in a focused dApps, and he used 2 examples. He talked about Golem as one that's optimistically geared and Bancor as one that's pessimistically geared. So that's not my personal opinion, that's just something I'm relaying, but he used those 2 examples to suggest that Golem is one that's generally considered optimistically because it's a computational token. It's designed to be a supercomputer essentially for the entire decentralized ecosystem. And that's a massive boon if it can be achieved for the overall network, because obviously there's a great need for something like that and to have that degree of data. On the other hand, he argued that Bancor, and again this is not my view, he said that the market is structured from a one-sided position and it has problems because of its automized bot system that underpins the overall structure and design and architecture of the Bancor layout. Now, I don't share that view, and that's cool. And there's reasons why, but I think it's important just to recognise that there is a genuine continuum here, and we need to be able to trying to locate where we think any particular dApp or project sits within this sentiment continuum, because it has a massive effect on the overall value of that particular project later on. So again, it's not just the gap itself, it's its position on the sentiment continuum that will matter. So moving on, the ones of focus today, the projects I wanted to just give you a quick rundown on them. So Streamr, if you're not familiar with that, it has a direct correlation with Golem, and essentially it's a cloud-based platform which runs real-time data analysis and provides visually appealing applications that display the innovation in a way that is clear and easy to understand. And I'm going to provide you with some links about that, but it does have direct ties with Golem, and it's based in Germany. That's its origin, so it's a European initiative, but certainly it's not designed to be such that it's conditioned or espouses solely, you know, projects from that region. It's actually designed to be an international project with international relevance. Particl is the first dApp built on the Bitcoin with confidential transactions. The reason why I put that in here is because simply, as we know, there's a lot of things going on within the Bitcoin protocol, sort of in terms of the forking that's happened, and there's a lot of debate as to which of the different forks will become prominent. And because of that, this is simply an issue of an innovation gap, in that the question needs to be raised, is Particl something that can be functional considering all of the different controversies and politics that are going on in Bitcoin? The next thing I wanted to talk about was Augur. Now Augur, I've just added in Josh Nussbaum's excellent ecosystem sort of platform or design that he's put forward, and I've just circled the area where there's prediction markets for Augur, because that's essentially what it is. It's a prediction market based project, and it's a lot works in similar lines as Gnosis. So I put that there simply because if you go through the market caps of this, it's a very small one. It's something that's going to pique a lot of people's interest. But again, we need to raise the question, is there an innovation gap with projects like this? So if you just want to know a bit more about it, guys, it does run on the Ethereum network, an interesting project. So just before I continue on, I'm going to provide you with some key information and key links. Don't forget, guys, to like, subscribe, and be a crypto share bear, and share this if you think it's valuable. And thanks for tuning in, and I'll put this forward later on, so I won't say goodbye yet. But if you want to follow me on Twitter, you can, guys, and it's right there, bradlorry.com. So here are some examples, guys, of some key information. I'll start with Cedric Dahl. Now, if you want to go directly to his source, again, I provided it on the presentation, but this is where you can go. You can see Cedric Dahl, and that's the title of his YouTube. It was really beneficial. The next thing is, this is the website for Bancor. So if you'd like to go to Bancor and check it out, it has all the relevant information, and many people are going to have very strong views about Bancor, and I've already read significant positive and negative, or pros and cons about the project. So again, I'm not providing financial advice to invest in them, but I will say and disclose that I certainly have invested in some of the projects that I'm presenting today, and not all of them. So Bancor, you can see its market cap there it's gone down slightly since, or substantially actually, since it listed, and obviously that's very typical of ICO releases. And then it depends on the quality of every project, whether it is viable, whether it continues. Also, this is just some extracts I took from the white paper, just to show you that I did read through the white paper to understand it. And if you'd like to, you can go on through and have a look at it. But Herzog is a very well respected person within the crypto community and blockchain space. The next thing I want to show you from Blockchain News was an article that was entitled "Bancor Protocol Foundation Announces New Partners Before Upcoming Token Allocation Events." Now, I've got an article to show you next, but the graphic there is really important, because you can see some really significant icons, meaning, and no pun intended, because icon is actually one that we'll talk about, but you can see ant shares in there, which is obviously Neo. You can see the symbol for Gnosis, and there's several others there. Civic is another one. So there's some direct affiliations with significant and very well respected projects that are already in the market, and that helps to better understand it from here. So here you can see from the Bancor website, there's some direct correlations or direct partnerships. That's the title of this here, and we're talking about Status. We're talking about Aragon, Gnosis, Civic, IM Token, Starbase, Neo, Business Partners, and we've got Smart Contract Japan, and then there's some others as well. So guys, it's really worth knowing about these things, because when we start to sort of see some of the partnerships that are there, we can start to forge a better understanding of the robustness of Bancor and where it's going. The other thing I want to show you is some other things. Now, there's a lot of information out there that suggests we could easily find that suggests that there's some serious problems and flaws with Bancor, and I'm not saying there isn't. I'm certainly not an advocate for one side. But what I will say is that if you go and do your research, that you can find some arguments to rebut that, and I found one by Aion himself. So again, I didn't go and find someone who was outside the system. I wanted to find someone who was working in the inner core, and this is a brilliant article. Again, I won't go through everything, but if you want to find out reasons why Aion feels that this is a very good project, this was written in June, and there are some other things going on right now, but it's worth a read. It's comprehensive. And you find that in the Medium website. It's a Medium article. The next thing I wanted to show you was an update. This was only published very recently, and I wanted to show you this because in Medium they do regular updates with regard to what's happening in Bancor, and that's important for us to know. So again, you can see that there's some significant things that are happening with the token relay, with Bancor network, with the Bancor web app. Some really cool stuff happening, and some connections. You can see the Storm token, Aion, and various things there. So I just want to show you that because Medium's a great location to see what's going on in Bancor, and you can follow them as well. To understand better. Now, this is something that I found very exciting. I'm a big fan of Nuco, the company, and Aion as a blockchain initiative, and Aion 1 particularly as the blockchain. What's exciting about this is that they're going to be offering the interchain liquidity via smart tokens. So that means that Aion is jumped on the bandwagon of Bancor. And as we explore more, there's other companies, big ones. So we know that there's Neo's involved. We know that Aion's involved. They are two significant interoperable networks within the overall, the crypto space, and more importantly, they aren't just simply smart contracts. These are interoperable blockchain networks. So they have significant weight in various regions of the world, and I'm talking about Canada for Nuco, and I'm talking about China for Neo, and we're going to talk about another one, South Korea, right now, and that is Icon. So this post is related to Icon Foundation. I'm a huge fan of the Icon Foundation and the ICX token. Now, they are also going to be incorporating Bancor in their plan, and it's actually laid out in their white paper. And I just wanted to show you this. This is a Reddit site, and this just simply, sorry, there's a bike going by, you're going to hear that. So this you're going to see is quite relevant, and there's debate going on within Reddit on this site about whether or not that's good or bad. But I think it's important you know that many big ecosystems within the blockchain space are actually looking at utilizing Bancor. Then I just wanted to add this to it. Everyone knows Ivan on Tech. He's an absolute legend. Cheers to you, mate. I've mentioned you many times before. Basically, I just wanted to explain that Ivan goes into significant detail here about explaining Bancor, and he presents it very well, and he also argues for a better understanding of Bancor. So that's great. It's great to see that there are fellow crypto colleagues out there that are exploring this, and there's none other here than Michael from Boxmining. He's fantastic, and during June when the ICO was being released, he went into significant detail about the actual plan. So you can check him out if you want to know a bit more about that. And then there's obviously Crypto, fantastic YouTuber who goes into a lot of detail, makes a huge amount of effort to better understand different ICO projects. And you can see from his title, he thought it looked sick in the sense that it looked really interesting and potentially very valuable. You can certainly check out those as a reference point. And then I wanted to talk to you a bit more about the next one, which was Streamr. Now, if you're not familiar with Streamr, the idea here is that they want to tokenize streaming data to enable a new way for machines and people to trade in a decentralized peer-to-peer way. As I understand it, and I've watched quite a lot of different presentations from the CEO, he did one recently where he worked with Golem in a presentation, and there were aims for them to work together because they actually they can benefit from each other's projects, and that, my understanding is that they have, and Golem is a major partner now of Streamr. And if you want to know a little bit more about it, firstly you can go and check out the currency market and see where they're at. You can see it's steadily increasing, or it's gradually increasing, and there's a huge supply of them. We're talking about 987 million as a total supply. Sorry, 987 billion. No, my apologies. It's actually 987 million, so almost a billion, which is a substantial amount. And obviously that's relative to the project itself, because it's designed to be tokenized data. So if you wanted to find out more a bit about it, you could go onto a website like this from Streamr itself, and they tell you within 2 minutes exactly how Streamr works. I personally have a lot of interest in Streamr. I think it's a really relevant company, and this is done by Henri Ficala, who is actually the CEO and knows a great deal more than I do about the project. Because the Golem is an affiliate or it's a partner, I wanted to show you the website for Golem. If you want to check out them, certainly go and check out them as well, guys. They are a really interesting supercomputer project that has a lot of interest around the world. But in saying that, I wanted to also mention Ameer Rosic, and the reason is because firstly he's an absolute legend and he knows a great deal about blockchain and cryptocurrency, but he goes into a lot of detail about addressing Golem as an investment in just in his view. Now, he doesn't provide financial advice, but he does provide insightful perspectives on the overall market, and his argument is, again, recognize the innovation gap and understand what that means, because all of the different projects I'm trying to present to you today are designed to align with the question of one, are they in an innovation gap, and two, where does it sit in the sentiment continuum? And Ameer's argument is that it sits in the positive side or in the affirmative side of the continuum, so it's a good project, but he argues again that there is an innovation gap, and I actually concur with that. I think that that's true, that there is a slight innovation gap currently, and that explains also things like price. The other projects I wanted to talk to you briefly about are Particl. Now, Particl, if you're not familiar, this is the website for Particl. You can see there. It's a Bitcoin initiative. It's designed to work on the Bitcoin platform. I wanted to put this in here simply because of all of the different protocol issues that Bitcoin has, and it raised the question, is this potentially also an innovation gap? Because whilst you would naturally think that it can be operational pretty quickly on well-established protocol, because they have their civil war going on within the SegWit dramas, and obviously with Bitcoin Cash, BCH splitting off some time ago, that in itself presents a question mark in terms of which of these will be applicable, which one will be the platform, etc. So I wanted to raise that from perhaps that perspective of, again, whether it has significant enough marketplace uptake right now, given some of the turmoil that Bitcoin's in. If you want to know a bit more about this as well, check out their the currency market capitalizations on Particl. You can see it there, and I might be able to just quickly, you can see the basic information. Moving on quickly, the next thing I wanted to talk to you about here was Dash's brilliant work. Now, he's a legend as well. He went into a lot of detail into how Particl as a decentralized market on the blockchain, on the Bitcoin blockchain, works. And if you want to know more about it, you can also check it out there. But essentially, as you can see, it's a market that will be an attractive option for anyone who buys or sells anything online utilizing the Bitcoin platform. So the idea is to be able to access goods and services, and the idea again is to work similarly to eBay, Etsy, and Amazon, which is a very, very ambitious project that's going to require significant technological advancement than we already currently have, with things like scalability as well. So again, in my opinion, there's an innovation gap there that presents itself. The next thing is to look at Augur. Augur is a very interesting company, a lot of controversy surrounding it at the moment, but if you want to know more about it, the argument is that it is another magic, prediction market platform, and as we saw from that initial ecosystem layout that was done by Josh, you can see that it's considered to be right next to Gnosis. So for a prediction market, the argument is simply questioning whether or not there is an innovation gap, and of course, in my opinion, there is. Doesn't mean that it's not viable in the future, or one of them won't win out. If you want to know more about Augur, there you can see that it's gradually rising, which is looking pretty good. It's moved, since February across to a value of approximately $16. So that's some substantial, market growth. The next thing is, if you want to know more about Augur, you can go and check out Augur's website. It'll tell you all about it and how it works as a decentralized prediction market, it could help you better understand it. In terms of a Medium article, what I thought was valuable is to add in that they do weekly updates, so to help you better understand exactly, what's happening. So not just to know what the technology ideas or what the proposal is, but know that it's important for us to understand the degree of the innovation gap. At any point in time, we need to see what the updates are and what the innovations are within the system. And what I like about many of these companies is that they do regular updates for us to understand exactly what's happening and how they are working towards bridging that innovation gap issue. So guys, that's basically it from me. I'll just quickly go back, as I said I would, to the beginning. And I hope it's been valuable just in terms of broaching the question of innovation gaps. So if you do have investments in any of these, I wouldn't worry. I think that the point is for us to understand the importance of innovation gaps so that we can make really informed decisions in our portfolio investments. Because at the end of the day, we want to make sure that we have really good quality investments. We have some that have potential growth for substantial growth in the future, and sometimes that requires a degree of risk and requires a degree of speculation, but informed speculation, so that you're not just guessing in the market. And this is the sort of things that I do to help understand the innovation gap, to see if there's movements happening to try and bridge it, and is the design and the protocol fundamentally sound from the outset. So guys, I hope it's been informative. If you want to find me on Twitter, you can find me there. But again, until next time, it's been great being with you and talking about this stuff. It's BlockchainBrad signing out. Cheers.